Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jim.
Okay, so we have got 1 hour. No rules. Anything goes. What do you think we should do?
1 hour. Well, Jim, let's purge. Welcome, everyone, to Two Guys Talking About Records, the show where, well, we have a lot of damn fun doing
That
it.
was a little ominous, Steve. That was a little scary.
Well, on my morning videos on Sunday, I'm showing scary Halloween crap, so it all works.
There we go.
uh, I'm Steve, and I am a record collector.
And my name's Jim, and I own a record store. And if you haven't guessed, we're not going to purge and go nuts and get all violent like the movies, but we're going to talk about purging the record collection, something that every serious collector either contemplates or has done, or in some scary cases, has done to them involuntarily.
What happens? What a fresh start.
There we go. So we're going to dive into that. I mean, it's not a subject that I think a lot of collectors like to talk about, but it happens for various reasons. And so we'll talk about that today, about what to do if you decide that your collection is too large and needs to be purged.
That's right. Uh,
So
yes.
before we get to that today, though, we've got a few things to cover. I want to talk about Rush because I've been getting a lot of questions here at the store. I've also got a little update on a couple of things we talked about with the Record Store Day Black Friday list last week. They are always tweaking the list, and there were a couple of things I think that were incorrect last week that I want to touch upon on there too. But before we do that, Steve, as we do each and every week, how about we cover some recent pickups, additions to the collection that well, it's the exact opposite of today's subject matter.
That's right. Jim, no one's asked me about Rush yet. I don't understand.
I don't know. Well, I'll ask you a little bit later. How's that?
Okay. Okay.
What you got this week?
Well, not much.
Really? Wow.
Not much at all. Yes, exactly. Though I was looking at this book I have. It's called, what's it called? The Knights of Fuzz. It looks at 80s and 90s fuzz and psych. And every entry I go, I need to order that. Well, I need to get that. So in the future, it's coming from Germany. It's coming from Greece. I mean, it's all over. But I did buy a couple. A nice original of U2's Zooropa. Has lemon and numb on here. And I even wore my U2 shirt just to celebrate it. It's by the 90s, they were really changing more electronic and everything, which I was into electronic. I do really like this album. I always have, but I was in a record store and there was a nice original. And it's the only album I bought at that record store. I just want to point that out.
Congrats.
I saw that exactly because, I got a purge. Really excited to get this, and I think I have all the U2 I really need now. Obviously I'm not buying their whole catalog.
Yeah, the only one I've ever really gotten into off of that album was Numb, and that's just because it seemed so different from a lot of other U2 stuff. Just even down to the music video was kind of it was creepy, but still kind of a cool song.
Exactly, it is, and so that was neat. The other one. Did I show the Hans Zimmer last week?
You talked about going to the show. No, I don't believe you showed it.
Yeah, so at the show, I think I might have mentioned that they had this for sale. And so, oh wow, they got the album for sale, and they only wanted $100 for it.
Ouch.
That was it.
Ouch.
Just 100. And when I asked 100, well, what makes it so good? And they go, well, there's 3 albums in it. Oh. Great. They weren't colored, they weren't autographed, nothing. Just 3 albums. That's worth $100. So I bought a T-shirt instead. But I went back and I sat down when we were sitting. My wife's company has suites there, so we get really nice seats. And I go onto Amazon. And well, by God, I can buy it on Amazon for $36. So
while you were at the show.
while I'm at the show, I purchased on Amazon for $36 the music of Hans Zimmer. And this was really, I mean, the concert was excellent, even though Hans wasn't there. What did they say? Someone wrote on my commented on my video, "Look, Mom, no Hans." That's pretty damn funny. But they go Man of Steel, Superman, The Rock, Pirates of the Caribbean, Gladiator, Dark Knight, Interstellar, Dune's on here, Lion King, Pearl Harbor, just through a variety of things. And this is volume 2. I liked it so much I did order volume 1 of it, because generally volume 1 has the coolest songs. That's the first one. So we put the really good stuff. Volume 2, well, here's the leftovers we did news for volume 1.
You got that Inception music sting that goes.
Yes, there it is. It's on there. That is on there. And at the concert, it was like, oh my God. I mean, your ears were vibrating.
You feel your fillings rattling.
Very, very much so. So, that I picked up, not for $100, but for $36.
Congratulations on your restraint, and you should have walked back to the booth and showed them your phone and said, "Thank you for showing me that."
Exactly. When we left, they still had a pile of records there.
Wow.
I'm sure someone bought it. If you don't know vinyl or you don't shop, you go, "Oh, I better have that." Yeah. That's it, Jim.
That's it. More. Oh my goodness. Holy cow, Steve.
Boy, do we got time this week.
Check your temperature.
And you have it easy. You don't have to buy many samples.
I'm gonna put a loop of that Hans Zimmer music sting from Inception in there. So
yes.
It makes it even easier, Steve, because one of my finds this week is not in Spotify. I've already gone and looked, and so it's not in there, but it's a very interesting one. I had an addition to the Michigan collection this week, in the name of the group called Sunday Funnies. I don't know if we've talked about these guys before. This is part of that Detroit / Ann Arbor late 60s, early 70s. This one's from 1972, by the way. It's their second album called Benediction. And the Sunday Funnies, really, I tell you the truth, they're in the vein of the Rationals. This I should probably say, too, that this is on Rare Earth Records. So that's that subsidiary of Motown that came out to just really, they were trying to expand Motown away from the African-American artists. And there's a whole sordid history that goes with this that I've been reading up on here and there, where the likes of Bob Seger, for example, when Cameo Parkway went out of business, which was Bob Seger's Systems album, Motown was courting him. And he said, I don't really want to, I'm not really a Motown type of guy. That was before the Rare Earth recordings. So he ended up on Capitol. Well, Motown kept it up, and they signed Rare Earth, the band, another cool Michigan band, and formed the sub-label of Rare Earth Records. And so you see on the inner sleeve, we've got a few of those: Rare Earth, Stony and Meatloaf, the Impact Brass, Magic, Sunday Funnies, right there in the center, and Rustics, and just a few of the others. So Rare Earth Records, along with Rare Earth and Sunday Funnies, I'm going to toss into that as well. It's like the Michigan rock scene in that era of the early 70s for the bands that were searching for a little bit of a genre identity of sorts. Yeah. Because you had your harder rock, the acid rock of MC5, the straight up rock of Seeger. You had the punk, pre-punk stuff of the Stooges and the like. And then you had folks like Rare Earth and Sunday Funnies that had a little bit of the funk side to them. They still have that really recognizable Michigan sound that we've talked about before, but it also's got a little bit of funk in there. And some of the cool stuff I'd read about this, and again, this one was from 1972, their first album, by the way. I have to go back and look at my notes here on this. Their first album was released in 1971. It was just simply self-titled. I'd seen that before come through the store, but it was just a completely trashed copy, and this one was a decent one to grab, so I brought this one in from 72. The first song on side A is called Get Funky, and it does, but it still has that kind of Michigan garage sound to it through there. But in the history that I read on these guys, they had started off by releasing a single on Hideout Records, which was another big Michigan label. And their manager also had some doings with Bob Seger. And I guess at that time, Bob Seger didn't really want to go on a tour. This is after the folding of Cameo Parkway, and he was trying to find his way. So Sunday Funnies recorded a version of Heavy Music for the B-side of their single released on Hideout. And the manager, I guess, used that to kind of cajole Seeger into saying, if you don't tour, I'm going to release this version of Heavy Music, and we'll make these guys famous. Seeger got PO'd and said, fine, I'll do it, but only if you cancel anything to do with that one. So Heavy Music exists only on that 7-inch single. And I don't know if it's on their first album, but it's not on this one. The only really notable one on this one as well is a Michigan early 70s rock-ish / funk cover of the Four Tops, Reach Out, I'll Be There.
Okay. A little Motown.
Little Motown.
Kind of would. I would like to hear Seeger do a Motown album. That would have been different.
It would be. And I mean, he had some sound on there too. Reach Out. Did I say the Four Tops? I meant the... Yes, it was the Four Tops. I don't know why I just stumbled on that. I had to stop and think, but yeah, that was the Four Tops. And it's almost unrecognizable on this. And that's why I wish I could put this in the Spotify playlist, because it would make for an interesting cut, but it's on YouTube. So if folks want to go looking for it, it's the Sunday Funnies, and they add it on there. So that was a cool addition. Okay. And I hemmed and hawed about that one, but after I gave it a spin or two, I thought it's a cool addition to the Michigan collection. So I'm happy I've got that in there. Okay, secondly, Steve, and this is not going to bode well for me in the next week or so. We'll find out for sure next week. I grabbed an album by the group Gomez, the British group Gomez. They've been around since the late 90s. And this is their 2006 album, How We Operate. It's one in particular, though, is a 2024 reissue on colored vinyl. I forget, got a cool inner sleeve. These guys are a neat little indie rock band. I've been paying attention to them for a while. In fact, several years ago, I picked up a copy of their album Liquid Skin. This one was, I'm going to have to start and think, originally released in... Now I got to go back to my notes. I've got too much going on, Steve. You ever have one of those days?
Yeah. Well, now I'm not.
Now you're not. Okay, Liquid Skin was not originally released in 1999, but this is a 2019 reissue, also on colored vinyl. But I'd found these guys at some point. I came across probably a music video surfing on YouTube, and thought that was pretty darn cool. And then I got that, and I couldn't find any more from our distributors on colored vinyl. And the ones that were on Discogs were in the $100 range. I thought, no, I like them, but I'm not really into them that much. Then this one popped up on the distributors. I saw that, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to give this another shot. Really cool song on here called, it's the title track, How We Operate. It's just, I don't want to call them lo-fi, but they're indie rock. In fact, our friend Abby, we were listening in the store here, and she said Liquid Skin, based upon whatever song you're listening to, reminds you of different bands. So it's almost like Gomez is a chameleon act that can pick up and sound like whoever you think they should sound like at any given time. So I picked up How We Operate. I really dig the album. It's up there with the likes of Goose, but they're not a jam band or anything of that nature. They're just a real good indie rock band out of Britain. So here's the bad side of this. I just did our new release show for next week's new releases coming up, and there are a whole slew of Gomez reissues coming, each of them on a different colored vinyl. I didn't include them in the show per se, but I mentioned the fact that they were coming as just kind of a precursor to remind myself that I may or may not have ordered a copy of each of those. I'm not going to be a Gomez completist, but there's a couple that I'm missing, but I think it's some good stuff. And so next week, if I go through with the order completely, we'll probably see them in the, hey, look what I did, Steve, next week. Here's 3 or 4 more Gomez albums. Are you familiar with them at all?
No, I'm not. But I think what happened is you bought that one and lights went on at Gomez HQ and go, hey, we sold one. Let's reissue the rest.
We sold it. Woo! Now, they've been around for a while, and their stuff is cool. So I'll dig it.
I'll have to listen to them on a Spotify playlist.
You will see them. They're on there, and I'll put something from Liquid Skin on it too. And finally today, Steve, this is a kind of a revisit. You know that in the past I've done some work with the folks out of Rush Fest, Scotland. I'm
Yep.
even wearing my Rush t-shirt today, Steve, like you're used to. They released their latest in a series of Neil Peart tribute albums. And this one is number 6, Songs for Neil, Volume 6. My connection with these guys, Steve Brown out of Scotland, and he is in a band called Moving Pictures. It's a well-known Rush tribute band, and he spearheads this effort usually about once a year. Obviously, they've done 6 of these now, where they release an album of Rush songs done by Rush tribute bands. And the money raised from this goes to cancer research, which, again, that took Neil Peart's life in 2020. So it's neat. And again, my connection is that I'm the U.S. distributor for these, meaning that not so much distributor, so to speak, but I'm the one that mails them out. So rather than Scotland, when he has U.S. customers buy these and send them over one at a time, which costs them a ton of money, which cuts into their money that goes to the donations, he sends me 3 big boxes of records, and then I spend a couple of days shipping them out to all of the U.S. distributors as they
There
pick them, or
was
U.S.
there
customers
was
rather.
not
Sorry.
yeah. There was not a free Rush concert ticket within that box. Oh. Well,
Nope, sorry. He did, however, send me
that sucks.
a program from the Rushfest Canada event that happened earlier this year in July that I did not make it to. They had that over in Toronto, but this is a cool album. It's got it's double LP and a good mix of Rush stuff from across the ages. It is on a neat colored vinyl as well, and the artwork is done by Rush artist extraordinaire Hugh Syme. The inner one is it's a beautiful little image on the inside. I don't know if you can actually see it,
Yeah.
of Neil Peart working at his desk. So neat tribute to the late Neil Peart. And I'm happy to be a part of this whenever these guys help them out. And I get a couple for the store, and I get one for me. You can see I still have my framed first, that's the volume 1 artwork that they sent me for helping out too. So I got that one framed, and it's neat. Happy to be a part of it every time they do that. So, and that is what I've got. And we're going to talk a little Rush in a second. Speaking of Rush, by the way. But yeah, if you folks would like to hear some of the sounds of the things that we're listening to, we put up a Spotify playlist each and every week. And most of the things we can find are in there. The Sunday Funnies are not this week. So I'll fill it up with Gomez and lots of Hans Zimmer. But you can find a link to that playlist in the description of both the Spotify episode and the YouTube episode. Check it out. And if you get a chance too, you can even scroll back and look for some of the previous. Some of the playlists are really short. Some of them are, I think, Steve, our record was about 4 to 5 hours long on a playlist for one of the ones where we discussed a lot of stuff. So always fun to do.
Yeah, well, appreciate the efforts. It is nice to be able to hear what the music sounds like. We can sit and blab about it, but it's your ears that really make the decision.
It is the one. So on the subject of Rush, Steve, I have been getting a lot of questions. You have not, though, oddly enough, Steve. So let me be the first to toss this out there, Steve. What do you think about Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee saying they're going back on tour as Rush with a new drummer?
I say good for them because everyone else does, so why not? Give the fans what they want.
Over the years, the past several years since Neil's passing, and they took a good hiatus through there. There's always been kind of that little nagging thing in the back. These guys, I don't think, especially Geddy, was not done making music. And Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson have appeared and played together a few times here and there for different events. They were at the Taylor Hawkins tribute concert along with Grohl and Foo Fighters. They played there. They showed up at Red Rocks for a South Park anniversary concert and jammed together there. And it's just been kind of a little thing I think that they've been discussing over a while. Neither of them are spring chickens, and I know that Alex Lifeson has complained about some arthritic issues in both his hands and his shoulders. And as a guitarist, Rush's older, grueling tour schedule had taken its toll on them. So lo and behold, they announced a tour out of nowhere last week and just said, hey, it's a little innocuous video that showed up on their social feed and on their YouTube channel and said, hey, we're going on tour. And the big talk has always been, if Rush were to go back out and tour, or do something or anything, they would obviously have to replace Neil Peart as a drummer, which he's, in my opinion, irreplaceable. So it would be a tough one. And there was always talk of, oh, somebody like Mike Pontneroy, or I forget the guy's name from Dream Theater, or maybe that's him from, or any other host of fairly famous drummer that had come up viewing Neil Peart as a big icon or as an influence on their drumming. And lo and behold, they pick a German woman by the name of Annika Niles, or Annika Niles, depending upon how you pronounce it, to come in and replace Neil. And I've done some, watched some videos on her, read a few things, and she's a phenomenal drummer. And I think she'll step into the role very, very nicely and make a neat little roundabout of their talents on bass and guitar.
Yeah, very cool. That's nice. Even at the Hans Zimmer, they had this incredible drummer. It was a female, and just phenomenal. Just like, wow.
So yeah, they've announced it as a 50-something tour 2026, and it started off with just a few tour dates here and there. New York, Los Angeles, Texas, Chicago, Toronto, Cleveland, and Mexico City. And even in just the pre-sale side of things went berserk, and they had to add extra shows in Chicago and Cleveland and Los Angeles and New York. I think they've kind of doubled down on all of that. And it is still technically, as of the recording of this, still in the pre-sale, where folks had to sign up and get into a queue for the pre-sale tickets. And I've had folks ask me, "Are you going to go? Are you going to go?" And well, I don't really want to go to Chicago, Cleveland to be about the closest. And I'm like, if I'm going to go there, I've seen Rush 12 times ish in my life, and including the very, very tail end of their time with Neil in the R40 and Clockwork Angels, and a couple of the Snakes and Arrows, a couple on the Snakes and Arrows tour. And I'm good with that. And it's not that I don't want to support them now, or I'm against them having a female drummer. I think that's great. I just think that I'm good with where I am and having seen them when I saw them. And I don't want my last memories of them to be Geddy's failing voice in spots and having to readjust his pitch to get where he needs to be on it. I'll get the album. I'm sure there'll be an album of the tour. I'm sure there'll be a DVD. I'll snag one of those.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying with that. When these artists get older, they can't hit the notes and all that. And you're excited, you're happy, but if you've seen them in their heyday, it is different. No doubt about it.
It is, and it's, again, I have nothing against what they're doing. I'm happy for them. I'm glad, because both Geddy and Alex they're musicians. They're the top of the top of musicianship, and they love performing and they love playing and they have a great time with each other. So who's to say they can't do it into their 70s? Heck, look at the Stones, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
They can, or any number that still go out there to do that.
Well, I saw a video of the zombies that were out there, and well, they kind of looked like zombies to me. It's like, whoa,
Get into the whole Frankie Valley thing, but and not to mention too, the ticket prices I think are going to be a big stymie for a lot of folks, even though they have not officially gone on sale yet. The rumors that I've been reading say that they start at $100 and go upwards of $400 to $500. And they're already being sold on places like StubHub, which I don't understand how they're selling tickets when they're not officially available yet. They're selling the idea that you can buy a ticket, so to speak. And those are going upwards of $1,000 I've seen. And I checked out the Cleveland site, and StubHub's like, oh, these down here are $1,000 to $1,200. Those up there are $400. Boggles the mind, but you have to be independently wealthy to go to shows like this if you're buying secondary.
Yeah, it is, boy. And that's concerts all over the place. You look at it and go, how can you afford to go anymore? It's just, it's not the same.
It is. So I'm good with it. And the other thing too is like, well, maybe I should have done some sort of reaction video. And this is kind of like the record store day, and it hit after the record store day. There were no shortage of reaction videos on YouTube, vinyl community or Rush community otherwise, talking about this announcement from them. So I'm like, I'm good with it. We'll talk about it Sunday for a little bit and have that a bit. So
Yeah.
I still love the band. I'll support them. I'll buy a few things after the fact, album wise, but I'm good.
All right.
One other quick thing before we dive into the Purge today, Steve, and that is just a quick go through on Record Store Day. There were a couple things that we talked about last week where after the fact, I found out the numbers were incorrect. One of them being the Eric Carr, and let me call that up here, the Rockology and Unfinished Business. The
Hmm.
quantity numbers were messed up a little bit on, I think it was the Record Store Day site we were looking at, or my
Yeah.
thing. These are the liquid filled ones that are going for $100 a pop. This
Hmm.
has apparently now been corrected on the Record Store Day website to being only 500 of each of them. So both the
Oh.
Rockology and the Unfinished Business are $500 limited run regional folk, or 500 printed regional run, limited run regional focus, and each of them at $100. So those are going to be real tough ones to get a hold of. I've already got several requests for those on our wish list that I put out here at the store. And I doubt I will get more than one each.
Yeah. If that, right?
Yep. The other one, I think that we had mentioned a Bob Dylan 7-inch, and that is now gone. DY, I can't spell today, Steve. Dylan. The only Dylan stuff left is the original Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, and he gets a credit on the
Huh.
band's Jericho. So yeah, the 7-inch that was on there is now gone. The Dylan one, and then the other one that I thought was going to be a tough one to get was the Dead Milkmen's Big Lizard in My Backyard, the 40th anniversary of that. Originally, the number looked like it was about 1,000 or less. Now it's up to 3,000 being pressed on this. So I'm a little more confident that I'll be able to get a copy of that, an extra copy for me once we get the ones out here at the store.
Okay. So the big head Todd didn't come down in price. They didn't say, "Oh, that was too high."
I
Damn
don't think that has been. I'll check for you after the fact. I don't have that called up.
it.
But Big Head Todd is still on there. His sister Sweetly, 2,400 of them, and it's a Record Store Day first at that price, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to come back. Yep.
So
Oh well.
that's that. But ever forward to Black Friday. The response, and we're heading into the time. I think I've got just a few days left on as of the recording of this today for our wish list that I put out there for folks to let us know what they want us to order. But as of this recording, it seems like the interest is down a little bit over previous Black
I was going to
Fridays.
ask you about that. Yeah, that was actually a good question. I want, what are you seeing with this? So far I don't have a lot, but God, then I walk into a store record. Oh, that does look cool. Oh, I do want that. I probably should purge something.
You could indeed, and that is where we're heading. If you buy too much on a Record Store Day or a Record Store Day Black Friday, especially when you go to those stores that overbuy everything, you're probably going to wander into one and see 10 of those Eric Carr albums someday.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot. But
No
what do you do,
kidding.
Steve? You have a finite amount of space behind you. And, in
Hmm.
Michigan, you had a basement full, and it just seemed to go
Yeah.
on and on and on. But Mother Nature took
Yeah.
care of that for you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now you're facing this again, and I think a lot of record collectors kind of come to this realization at some point in their lives. Do I need this many records? Do I want this
Mhm.
collection as it is? What should I do?
Yeah. About a year ago, we did that interesting video, very interesting video, everyone, about how many hours worth of music do
Yeah.
we own,
Yep.
and how often can we listen to that album. And it went on like for 3 years or whatever with steady listening every single day.
Yep.
Well, I'm running out of time. So,
Oh, come on.
but but uh, it's just, I don't want to expand my collection. I don't want to go into another room because it's going to be a lot of music that I know I'm just not going to be able to listen to. But the purge, that is so difficult. I too often we can rationalize why we have to have that album. I mean, we can rationalize anything we want, and a music collector is very good at rationalizing
It's
this.
a
I
very
know it
easy process to
sucks.
say, well, I once listened to that twice in a single day 5 years ago, so I should keep it.
Yeah, yeah. Or we look at it and go, this was an important album. This album historically is very, very important. I think it sucks, but guess what? That's like a 5-star album,
Yep.
and I should have that because it's part of a collection. And it just becomes, is it a collection or is it a library?
Well, let's
What do you
look
got?
back as we get going here. Let's talk a little bit about some of the reasons that a record collector may want to purge. And the first being
Yeah.
what you just hit upon is the space constraint. You're kind of tight in a room. You're saying, I don't want this to flood over and affect other areas of the
Mhm.
house. Maybe you've got a family member that's like, you know what? Please keep it to your room. Don't let that, don't make piles everywhere.
Yeah.
Here at the
I've
store,
heard that on a number of videos.
oh yeah, yep. Life changes, and I've done one major purge in my lifetime, and a couple, I guess we'll call them mini purges. But the life change was a big move. You know, we moved from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan down here to the Midland area back in 1997, and at that point, I've been collecting fairly seriously for maybe about 8 or 9 years and bringing a ton of stuff in. And I had probably about 3,000, 4,000 records somewhere in that neighborhood. And I cut them down by about 2/3 when I moved out of the UP just because, oh, I don't really need them. But there was a lot of 12-inch singles and a lot of promo stuff, a lot of
Mhm.
radio shows because I was just coming off of my time in radio up there. And so I cut them down to what I thought was the core stuff.
Yeah.
And there's other reasons that kind of come to mind as well. Financial needs. I'll talk about that a little bit. Shifting tastes. We've talked about this before, where you're evolving as a collector. So, emotional or
Mhm.
psychological reasons. There's an involuntary purge, which really kind of what happened to you. And then later in life, people talk about decluttering, minimalist.
Yep.
So all
Yep.
of these kind of come into
Uh,
play.
when I moved here, I had to touch every album as I put them into boxes,
Yeah.
and that was, my first purge. I just taken, okay, I'm not going to listen to this. I don't need this. Why do I have this? And there were some good albums that I also purged. So, I brought them in to trade in, and I traded them into you because, uh, but I need it. And I'm going to be moving again next year. The plan is to buy a house. So I may have a bigger record room, but the thing is, I don't need more records. So I just put in 2 more. I just ordered more. So
You've got a
I
box
think,
coming from me in a week.
yeah. So see, we keep that going. But as I look, here just. Well, we'll get into it in a little bit, but I did pull some stuff where I have question marks on.
Hmm.
Do I purge? Do I not purge? There was one gentleman, his name Dom, his channel Seeking a Thread. He has purged a lot of albums, but it's to get money to buy a grail, something he really wants. So he goes through and he purges a whole bunch, and to get these extra funds to get something he really, really wants. That's a good reason to purge. One album versus maybe 10 to 15 that he got rid of,
Hmm.
but he's going to have that happiness.
And that also, yes, indeed, and it also addresses a little bit of the spatial issues too. I think a little bit
Mhm.
about the space thing first and foremost, because here at the store, for those that haven't been here, we're not a huge store, but I think for the size of the Midland, we're a decent one. I've got a lot of space here, stuff spread out. You've seen the hell that is my storage room in the back, and that's come along a little bit. But this sounds weird, Steve, but I consider this to be my collection overall. Sure, some of it I'm
Mhm.
selling, but I have a personal collection. And right now, my personal collection is tremendously disjointed because I utilize some of that here in the store for store copies and play. Some of the stuff I just like having here with me when I'm there. So I've got a main shelf of about 400 to 500 records off to my one side next to the turntable of the most common stuff, the play copies that I want to use. Then in the back part of the store, I've got a rack of my Michigan collection, and
Hmm.
that's there. And then I've got 2 totes of my other stuff that's more common that I'm holding on to for some damn reason that I want eventually in a record room, when I retire. And then at home, I've got a one of those the prefab shelves set up with about 400 records there, and that's the primo stuff that I want at home to be able to listen to, the rare Floyd. So for me as a collector, the idea of purging is something I don't address often now, but as a record store owner, I can say, well, if I don't want this one, I'll just put it on the shelf out here to sell it.
Yeah,
So I don't consider that to be a purge, so to speak, as much as it is like, well, I haven't listened to this in a month or two. Away it goes.
sure. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. And you know, I'm just looking, and I'll have to walk through, album by album. I when we do a lot of these, when we do these broadcasts, I go into my shelves. I'm trying to find something to pull out. I was like, what do I got? But here's one that I pull out constantly. I mean, I see it in there, and it's Hourglass, the pre-Allman Brothers thing, and I go, but I never want to play it. I pull it out and I look at it. It's cool because this was before the Allman Brothers started up. They had this group, but yet, yeah, I'll pull something and put something else on that I really, really want to play. Do I need to have it? Now, I just dropped it onto my stereo this morning. That's pretty good. You know what? I like this. But the fact is, I'll put on a Sex Pistols album, a Spaceman 3 album before I will look at this. It's not what I'm jumping at. It's so, I sit there and have to try to think, do I need it? And the same thing came up with, as thinking about that, the Allman Brothers. I have Idlewood South, we have the Beginnings, uh, Live at the Fillmore, and Brothers and Sisters. I I never pulled the Allman Brothers. I like the Allman Brothers. I enjoy the Allman Brothers. Fillmore South is a classic album, but what is it? This is like this album goes like $30. That album goes, but this one's like a $9 album.
Yeah.
Here's about an $11 album, and I'm not listening. Maybe I just need the greatest hits.
That's where I was going to go
But
with that, because we have had this discussion with greatest hits albums before, that some of those will suffice. I've got a Soundgarden greatest hits that does just fine for me, or
yeah,
stuff like that. So that addresses the spatial issue and gives you a little bit too. But yeah, you have to ask yourself that question about how often do you go to the well.
hmm
I'll be faced with this eventually. I mean, I'm not going to run the store forever. So what happens? I dread what
yeah,
happens with that back room if I've not sold most of that stuff by then.
true. Yeah, and right now, when you think about it, Purge, prices are good on vinyl. Yeah, they're strong. If this is, something you feel, it's striking when the iron's hot. Now there is a lot of crap out there. Certain albums are worth a lot, but you have to kind of look at that, and maybe it's the time to purge just because prices are good.
Well, it leads to another thing here. And I always feel bad about this. There's been a few times that I've had folks come into the store saying I need to sell either this record, or most recently
Hmm.
I had someone say I need to sell my collection, and it was a
Yeah,
life changing / financial event where a job was lost. And you feel
yeah,
for these folks who've been collecting for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever the heck, saying that, I had this unexpected bill come up and I really need to sell this. And sometimes, and I brought in a couple of big items that way, and I always feel bad. And whenever that happens, I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because I've
yeah,
been there. The purge I talked about with the move, not a lot of it, but there were a few things in there that I really regret getting rid of. And so you've got that regret factor of whether or not you're going to get rid of something that's irreplaceable. Most stuff can be replaced. Some things cannot. And
hmm
that's what happens. But yeah, it's always kind of a sad thing. And the one that had happened earlier a couple months ago here was somebody that had been coming into the store for a while. Said, job's gone. I got to move out of state. I don't want to take these with me.
Yeah.
So,
There's a gentleman I know up in Canada, and he used to have a YouTube channel, but he'll still watch my videos at times. And he just decided he was tired of collecting. He goes, "Why am I doing this? I just kind of tired of the whole thing." So he just stopped. He went cold turkey.
huh.
Now he went out and bought himself a power boat. I mean, a
Okay.
power boat. So he goes, he goes, well, it's hard to afford the records when you got to buy gas for this.
Just sell 1 or 2 big records a week for a tank.
Yeah, so that was his big change. But he was tired of collecting. Side, I want to move into something else, and I want because like me, this is you spend a lot of money on records, probably more
Yep.
than I should spend. But I have disposable income, I could do it. But as you enter retirement, you go, should I? But then again, I'm going to die, so what am I going to do with that money when I'm dead? Well, my kids have an idea. Well, give it to me, but you know,
And that's the other thing too. We have, again, this is a subject we've touched upon before, especially when we had Todd, our lawyer friend, on talking about
mhm.
what to do with your collection, what happens to that when you're gone. And this ties into the decluttering or the minimalist stage. When you reach that certain point in your life to say, okay, I've amassed this great record collection of a couple thousand records here or there. And you said there were some comments on that one about what happens to your collection when you're gone. It said, I don't care, I'm gone. Well, that's not too
Yeah.
fair. But at the same time, I have, and some of the best collections we've brought in here to the store have been from an estate. And,
Hmm.
the spouse has gotten a call. And I've always tried to be fair, by the way, but, the big psych collection, the punk collection, and each of those came from an estate. And there was just some primo stuff in there that the person who is left behind needs to figure out how to take care of and what to do with that. So if you're deciding to say, well, I'm in my upper 70s, I'm in my 80s, I've got this mammoth collection, I both want to declutter, I want to minimalize, but I also want to try to purge some of this so my family doesn't sell them for pennies on the dollar
Hmm.
when I'm gone to, an unscrupulous buyer or something like that. Then that's a big consideration that goes into this huge decision, because not only are you getting rid of something that is a big part of your life and some stuff that you really absolutely love, but you're also questioning your mortality at that point.
Yeah, it is. And do you leave it that your family has to deal with it?
Yep.
And or by getting rid of it, especially when you're not decrepit, you use that money to go do something else. Maybe you want to travel.
Yep.
Yeah, an Allman Brothers $9 album is not going to get me very far. I could probably get to the grocery store with the tank with the gas, but some of the other stuff, there's just they decide to do something else.
And it's always a difficult decision to make. Now, the other side of this is when the decision making process is completely taken away from you. And what did we call this the other day? An involuntary purge. that
Yeah.
it's been 5+ years since your involuntary purge, being
Hmm.
the big flood of Midland in 2020, that affected a lot of people here in town, but you as well. You lost a ton of records, and I mean that quite literally. You
Yeah.
had probably
Yeah, it was.
a metric ton that had to go out to the curb.
It really filled up the curb though, man. That was a hell of a pile. Uh, right now, I couldn't imagine what if I had all that, what I would do with it. I really, it's just mind-boggling, especially with the move. How would you move all of that? There's a gentleman. He's in Chicago. His name's Steve, and A is for Apple, B is for Bob, C is for something. But he is getting ready to move to Phoenix, and he has a very large collection. Well, he's trying to purge some of that now because he just knows I don't want to have to bring all this there. I mean, it
Yeah.
takes up so much room. It's so much
Yep.
time. It's so freaking heavy. Yeah, it was exhausting. It was exhausting moving what I have here, and now I have more. And if I move again, it'll be close. At least my kids are here. I can say, "Hey, pack that up."
Come
Uh,
help.
but Exactly. Bring your friends. Let's get this done. I'll sit here and watch. But it's exhausting. And if you're doing that and you have a large collection, do you want to move it? Our friend Michael, he just moved up north,
Yeah.
to the UP. He left a lot of his collection there until he finds a place at home, just because, you only have so much room.
And that's what's tough. And like I said, you had that experience just a couple of years ago. And you're right. Had the flood not happened, we have talked about this before too, and I think we did a special video on that separately, on how, as painful as that was, you took it like a champ. First off, you were
Mhm.
you on the surface at least, you were fairly unfazed. But in retrospect, you looked back at that involuntary purge event as almost a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. If I got more than $8,000 from the insurance company, it would have been a super cool.
Well, the monetary dealings with insurance aside, I mean, that
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah, it
you're never
was.
going to get, but you're right. And I do recall the day after that flood. I mean, we were fine out at my place. The store was fine. You were not. I remember going over to your place with the generator to help and a couple of sump pumps to try to help get that basement out. And I looked down into your basement and all I saw was things floating. And I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine. I could not imagine.
Yeah. Yep. They sure were. But I'm just glad I didn't have to move it. So
Yep.
you're right. This is a case of, now I feel that was, that was a ton of money. That was a whole life of collecting, but it's okay, because I don't know how I would have moved it, Jim.
Well, now I've
I
got
would have been brought a truck to you. I'd say, hey, Jim, this is trade. It's a truck full, but let's do
it's
it.
a truck full. I'm going to get a storage unit. I've got one other thing to ask about this though, with the idea of that being an involuntary purge. There were several dozen, and correct me on the number, there may have been more, that you just saved the vinyl of. So was that truly a purge? Because you said, well, I'm going to save this OG piece of vinyl and then replace it with a reissue until I find another one.
Yeah, there was probably 200
Wow.
that I saved, but it were, well, I did say Walter Murphy's The Fifth of Beethoven. I still don't get it. I don't, when you're traumatized, you tend to do things. But it was a lot of my most expensive
Yep.
stuff, or that really meant a lot to me. I mean, Bachman turned over, not trying to, I saved the vinyl, damn it, because I might not find that again.
In the bargain bins.
Yeah, but then there's, Big Star's first album, and OG. Save that. That Simon and Garfunkel, though you need the mono, though I don't have the cover. So I was like, yeah, well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did, on things that meant a lot or were valuable.
Is the idea of the emotional reasons, do you think that blocks a lot of collectors from saying, I don't think I can do this voluntarily. I don't want to do this. And they just hold on past the ability to make that decision. Does that make sense? They
It does.
put it off and put it off and put it off until it's too late.
Yeah, I would have, with that huge collection. I would. I mean, I could not imagine purging. I mean, that was just no way. I have all this, and this was the case where it was like a library versus something else. What happens if I want to listen to that album?
Yeah.
And now I don't have it, because we all know, as soon as you get rid of something, the next day you go, God, I wish I had that. Oh, wow. Well, son of a gun, maybe I better go buy it back again. But it happens, and we do have an emotional connection to music. And for many, it's very difficult. Some have no problem. I can do this. You know what? They're able to separate that. And as I look at this winter purging this, I have to separate that, because there's albums I've pulled that I don't listen to, but I may listen to that in the future. If you haven't listened to in 3 years, do you think you really are? No, but it's hard because, again, you rationalize it.
Yep. And the regret factor does come into this. I mentioned the big purge that I had in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
We moved from the UP to down here. The majority of the stuff that I did get rid of was 12-inch singles and promos and radio stuff like that, of that nature. I kept the things that were important to me. And in fact, I look at some of the pieces of my collection that have not only survived my teenage years and into the young adulthood, but me moving to college, going through college, finishing college, starting a family, moving again. I still have stuff that I had since I was a I've had since I was a teenager, and I don't know
Yeah.
how I've managed to tag that along with me in the various moves here or there. Where there are some things that I'm like, I swear I had that at one point. I must have gotten rid of it. I don't really remember doing it. I really wish I still had that. I had a
Uh-huh.
sampler.
Yeah.
I had a sampler that I'd gotten when I was in college. We went to a college radio conference, Loyola College in Chicago. We'd go to this every year, and I actually got this nifty little sampler of Chicago music on vinyl that featured this new band called the Smashing Pumpkins, and it had some cool stuff
Sure.
on there from them. Think I could find that. I don't remember where or when or how I'd gotten rid of it, but man, that would have been a cool thing to have nowadays,
Yeah.
especially given where they went. And this was pre Smashing Pumpkins being anything other than a
Wow.
local band. And then there's certain things that I regret. A lot of promo copies of things. I used to have a lot of radio shows back in the 80s
Mhm.
when I worked radio. The Westwood One, for example, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but they would serve up their radio shows to smaller stations on vinyl, i.e., satellite was a thing, but it was too expensive. So here's your weekly show from Westwood One in
Yeah.
concert or the off the record
Mhm.
special interviews. And when you're done with them, you're supposed to destroy them.
Yeah, right.
Or
Okay.
Jim just holds on to them. And I had this, I
Yeah.
mean, I had the In Concert series was just a great show. I had Pink Floyd, I had Rush, there's Deep Purple in there, Van Halen, all the cool stuff from the In Concert series. That survived my purge. But as I started into starting a family in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was like, well, we could use the space. They're in my basement there. I don't listen to these very much. And that's when I started farming a few of those things out in mini purges, so to speak. And I look
Mhm.
back now, it's like, man, especially as a record store, I would not have any idea that I'd be owning a record store
Yeah.
into the late 2000 teens and mid 20s. But had I had those still, man, that'd have been cool to do.
Mhm. Yeah. As I'm looking, right now, trying to make decisions, and I'll show you just a few examples of this. Uh, I look at, so I have like Bitches Brew. This is an original, a Bitches Brew. The spine's not in the best shape, but there's a few pops or ticks. It's not bad overall. It sounds pretty good. A medium price of this, goes for about $43. Then I got a MoFi of it, so which sounds excellent. The MoFi version, it goes a medium price around $59. Then I have a reissue version of this, and this goes for 20. Average price of 24. After the flood, I probably got this first. Then I'm sure I found an original. Then, hey, that's a MoFi. I want to have that. But do I need all three? I should get, this I know is going to be so, as far as sound quality, deciding what has the better sound quality, what,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be coolest. The originals are fun, but, probably, obviously this repress, you don't always just want to sit there and play your MoFi, but it comes down to, am I going to be playing that all the time? I love this album, but I don't drop it on the turntable every month even. So,
Yeah.
but I had here a couple more examples. So Pretty Things. This is an original of the Pretty Things. This in 1965 goes for an average price around $40, medium price. But I recently had found this repress, and this is from 2014 for like $23. Which one probably sounds better? This, because this has been played, it's been used and stuff, but it is a cool original. And this where I often, I struggle with. I love originals, but this would sound better on the
Hmm.
turntable. And the same thing would go with, I guess, the seeds. We have here, I got an original, and the original goes from 66 around $49 average. In the repress from 2003 on this one, $25. it's it's the OG versus, and maybe I'll keep them both. My playable copy, the one that puts a smile on my face, because I just, I love having the OGs, but I really probably don't need them. You could get a decent trade for some of these because they would be popular and people would want them. So, and trying to look at that, original versus repress, the price, the sound quality. Doubles and triples are easy. What was it? The one, the Funkadelic one, where I suddenly found I have 3 of them. Okay, well, that's an easy one there. And definitely one has to go. But, some of these others, the original versus the repress, what do you really want? Price. I look at just, wow, that one's worth a lot more than this, but that other one sounds better, but God, that thing has some value to it. And I struggle with those, Jim.
And that's the thing that you'd really have to struggle with, because if you're playing the market, so to speak, is this overall going to maintain its value, or are there little quirks that pop up, whether it be an extra reissue of something that hasn't been pressed before? Take that Buckingham Nicks, for example. They just repressed a audiophile version of that. And I've yet to see whether or not that's going to tank the OG prices or whether that helps them. But yeah, you're playing a little bit of a game if you're saying, okay, I've got 2 copies of this. I've got 3 copies of this. Do I want to get the maximum trade value? Do I want to get the cash for something else that I want to toss toward? And is it the right time to get rid of it market-wise for the used vinyl? Now, from the store perspective, you got to always keep in mind too that when we bring stuff in, again, I say this all the time, that I do my best to be fair with people when they bring stuff in to trade or sell. In some cases, the collection that I'd mentioned earlier was a buy outright, and I thought I was very, very fair with the person. But at the same time, I have to pay electric bill. I got to pay rent. I got to pay my insurance and bring in extra stuff. This is what I do for a living, so it's a business. So you're not always going to get what you think your albums are worth if you kind of decide it's time to dump them. It's time to purge. This is all you're going to give me, Mr. Record Store Owner? Oh, geez.
I've sat with you many times, Jim, at your store as someone comes in with that collection of all collections that they have found, and it's like, well, might as well go ahead and disappoint them now, Jim.
Sorry. It's Mitch Miller's not worth it.
Yeah, but it is. How do you sell a collection? I mean, so you want to purge. What's the best way in which you can sell it? Yeah, the easiest way to me, obviously, is to bring it to your record store.
Yep.
And, but you are not going to get whatever you think that's worth. Whatever Discog says, it's not going to happen. Yep. And you have to accept that. I think you would agree, if you do credit, you're going to get a better trade in value than if you ask for cash.
It is too. And then the third option is say, well, I'm just going to sell these myself. And kudos to the person that wants to do that. But running a record store, I know what it takes to sell records day in and day out to people. It's a lot more daunting of a task to say, I'm going to sell these myself individually, especially if you're going to use eBay or Discogs, because now you're shipping. Now you're worrying about damage in shipment. Now you're worrying about materials to ship. Now you're worried about this and this and this, and the sheer amount of time that it takes. Just to give you an idea, Steve, how long ago did you move to Colorado? It's been 2 years now.
Almost? About a year and a half.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. As for his example, the trade-in that you brought in, remember before you left, you brought me a bunch of records in trade. I keep track of those where they're coming in our inventory. I keep track of where they come from. I still have about 24 of those records of yours still in the system to sell. So it's not an instantaneous thing. I'm going to sell my collection because I'm purging, and I'm going to do it myself, and I'm going to get rid of it all at once, and people are going to pay me top dollar for it. Likely not going to happen. And so then you go the route of saying, I'll take it to a record store. And I gotta put this out there too. Lots of times I get this from people, and the mistake they make when they call me is to say, well, I've got this collection. It was my brother's, it was my father's. And of course I say, okay, I'm looking for the classic rock. I'm looking for the biggies in here and this and this. Well, I've already sold all of the good stuff out of it, the Pink Floyd and the Led Zeppelin stuff. And this is the stuff I couldn't sell. So for them to tell me that I had this collection that had all the good stuff in it, but you're getting the crap that I couldn't get rid of, instantly tells me, so well, you're getting less than $1 a piece for them. What? Well, I'm sorry. I've got a ton of Jackson Brown here already. So I don't
Yeah.
need any more Linda Ronstadt. Thank you. Yes, that could be worth $5 if you sell it. And each and every single one of the other 10 copies I've got are the same thing. So
Go on to YouTube and learn how to make a bowl out of it.
there we go. We've been doing that with a lot
I
of those
know.
other
I
ones
know.
of late. So I mean,
Oh,
it's not an easy fix, is what I'm getting at, to say I'm just going to get rid
no.
of them all in one fell swoop. And if you go to the record
Mhm.
store for a trade or a straight up sale, you're going to be disappointed in it. But that only adds, again, in my opinion, that adds to the emotional response to the purge. It may be something you hadn't expected. I'm I'm going to purge this, but I'm also going to get rich. It's not going to happen.
No, it won't. And that's the thing as we look at this and we look at the value and go, wow, that's worth this much. Only if you can somehow sell it for that much,
Yep.
and that's going to be difficult. Yeah, Discogs is there, but you do have to. I mean, you got to jump through hoops. You got to do all kinds of stuff. You got to get out there. Then you got to hope someone's going to buy from you because you have no ratings. You have no one's ever bought anything, so you are the gamble of a lifetime. And so, a lot of times, when I look at Discogs, you're looking at the guys that sell the most. Now, price does make a difference. eBay, I don't mess with. There's What's Not that's out there. A lot of people seem to find that's easy. The VC does auctions. There's some that they're going to auction up the albums right on the VC. You have to ship it out, but you're getting it done really quick and you're really moving it. That seems to garage sale. You can
Yep.
put it out there. And if it's your own collection, you can set whatever price and you get serious collectors. You go, that's the price. Now, most people are going to look at you nuts. You want that much for a vinyl record and that? And you go, yeah, I'm a little crazy. I'm a little touched. That's right. That's what we want. And, or you could just bring your crates to a record show.
Yep.
Again, you have to pay for a table, but
Yep.
you can put it out there. A lot of people have suggested that to me. Why don't you just bring a bunch of that to a record show and try to sell it that way? But you still have to do all that. The easiest way is go to a record store and here you go. But you're not going to. I got a Zamrock albums. They're $500 for medium price. Not happening. I would need to go on to a specific market to
Yep.
sell those.
Can you imagine putting those in a garage sale and having somebody come through and look at a beat up piece of thing that's been in the dirt? What?
Yeah.
And you say, but I'm purging.
Yes, that's right. But
Well,
it is how do you have to find a different way if you have something really expensive to think, how can I move that out? Or I know some, when Bill was selling his, when you took Bill's collection, you made some special things to help him, but that was a special case.
Yep. And that there are instances where something like that comes into to play. And I'm going to mention this as we're running up on time here. I did, and I think I mentioned to you about a month ago, I looked at a collection. It was another estate collection. And it was probably something that would rival all of the other collections that I'd gotten over the years here. It had some phenomenal stuff in a Michigan collection in there that was to die for. And I don't know if I'm in the running or not still on this. I made an offer, and the asking price was 6 digits, 6, and my offer was, let's just say, a digit or so less. And even if they had said yes, I still would have been struggling to try to find a way to do it. But we're probably talking about 7,000-8,000 records, and there was a lot of heavy stuff in there. But
Wow.
again, this happened after someone had passed, and then it left the other person in the household to deal with it, which is a sad situation. But here, there, or there. So, Steve, what are you going to do? Are you going to no holds barred, no rules, purge?
I have to do it, but it's going to take a lot of pull it out, drop it on. Do I still really like this or not? And then just have to think, okay, it sounds great, but why haven't I ever played that since I bought it?
One final question. When you do finally do this purge before your next move, are you setting a number goal? Are you setting a spatial goal? Are you setting a financial goal? How do you think you'll approach that?
It's more of a space goal, I think, to open it up. Financial, it's not that important. My biggest, right now, I thought about bringing to a record store for credit. With you, I trusted you. Okay, I know you. We're friends. And I felt, okay, I always get a good deal. Here, I know some, a few of the different, well, I've been to every store, but I don't know how they're going to react and what I'm going to get. It makes me a little nervous that, you just kind of get the screw job. This is what I'm going to give you for it. So, yeah.
It's a tough one. Well, I feel for you. Good luck. I really am dreading the day that I decide that I'm going to have to consolidate what I want out of this space and move it to a place where I finally get a record room and how I'm going to make things fit. I've got a few years, but I don't want to think about that yet.
Yep. Understand.
What do you folks think? Is this the dilemma of a collector? To purge, to not purge? How do you decide? What do you decide before it's decided for you? Never a pleasant thing.
No. Nope. Decisions you got to make.
All right. Well, that will do it. I think on that note, Steve, we need something happier. I'm going to go listen to a Rush album.
Okay. I think I might listen to that Hourglass album again, see if it needs to be purged.
Well, you folks have a great week, and don't forget to check us out online, the Facebook page we're trying to keep up with. Leave some comments. As always, listen in and each and every week, and we do appreciate you folks doing so. But until next week, Steve, hold it together. But my name's Jim, and I own a record store.
And I'm Steve, and I own a too big of a record collection.
Have a good week, Steve.
Yep, you too, Jim. Bye, everyone.